breaking up into these sort of mini national states within the United Kingdom, I think, would be a disaster.
And you would leave believing that the rest of the planet lived in Eden until the wicked Europeans arrive. It's not education, it's self-flagellation.
Murray expresses concern for the UK's future in these uncertain times.
There'll be a monarchy. I would worry about the United Kingdom in these circumstances. As you say, Piers, I mean, the gains that Sinn Féin made in the local elections, historic gains, should be troubling to anyone who is, like me, a unionist.
Sinn Féin, though an Irish nationalist party, is seen by Murray as extremist.
Sinn Féin, of course, is an Irish nationalist party and is as well, in my own view, an extremist party. And that isn't mere rhetoric. You know, Mary Lou MacDonald, the head of Sinn Féin, has an unbelievable track record.
Sinn Féin has always shown respect to statues in Dublin.
You mentioned this earlier. You know, there's only one statue in Europe, and it sits in the park in Dublin. Sean Russell, an IRA member who was on a German U-boat in 1940. There's a statue to him in Dublin, and Sinn Féin always pay their respects there.
Mary Lou MacDonald represents the more militant faction of Sinn Féin.
Mary Lou MacDonald, a couple of years ago, was taken there to pay her respect. She was, as it were, bloodied by the more militant wings of Sinn Féin. That's totally normal in Sinn Féin history.
Sinn Féin are not just nationalists, they are extreme Irish nationalists.
It's not just that they were an extremist party in the past, it's that they are in the present. It's not just that they're Irish nationalists, that they are actually extreme Irish nationalists, violent Irish nationalists, always have been, and seem to continue to be. I think it's an incredibly worrying development. As you say, alongside the ongoing success electorally of the Scots nationalists in
Murray warns the breakup of our country is a real possibility.
It's certainly possible we could see the breakup of our country. It's something where I think everyone who recognizes that the United Kingdom's been an enormous force for good in the world should really be very worried about. We should be very troubled by that. You know, the breaking up into these sort of mini national states within the United Kingdom, I think, would be a disaster.
Yeah.
And you're right, one other thing quickly, of course, Her Majesty the Queen has presided over this period of peace and union, and I worry enormously about what comes after, as everyone does. They basically find him guilty of some Victorian attitudes, which, as you know, if you're born in Victorian England, you might well have some Victorian attitudes. Surprise, surprise. If you're born in the 19th century, it turns out you don't have all of 2022's views. But you're right, I mean, the anti-Westernists, which is what I think they are, not just woke. Woke's a sort of manifestation of it, but the people who just hate the West, hate the Western democracies, they keep trying to take down our hero figures. And when I first started noticing, I thought, this is very strange. You know, normally cultural revolutionaries start at the margins and move inwards, but they haven't, and I think that this is very telling. They have come for Winston Churchill and are defaming his reputation, and this isn't just the fringes, this isn't just some protesters graffitiing his statues.
In America, historical guilt is used to justify the removal of statues.
It's things like the BBC, who now never run a story about Churchill without running a link to a page of the 10 worst of Winston Churchill. We have the college named after him at Cambridge, running panels about his alleged racism and much more. And when I noticed this, I thought, this is strange. And then I looked at America, and it's the same thing. In America, the same thing of finding people guilty of being born in the past and having some attitudes of the past has been used to justify the removals of statues of the family.
I mean, the lowest moment for me, Douglas,
Lincoln.
I thought the worst moment for me was when you had the Black Lives Matter protests in London and they had to board up the statues in Parliament Square of Churchill, Mandela and Gandhi. Three of the great figures, really, of the last 100 years had to be protected from a mob that may want to deface them and scrawl horrible graffiti on them. And I thought that was such a depressing moment.
Nobody passes this test, Piers. That's the crucial thing. Right. Nobody passes the test. You know, as I say in The War on the West, you know, even if you take some of the criticisms of Churchill, and like all people, he's a bit flawed. Everybody is. But even if you take those criticisms, you know, does standing alone against and being more important than any other individual for seeing drugs and beaten back. Does that count for nothing?
Yeah.
You know, so what if he liked to drink on the side? So what if he said some things that we don't agree with today? That should count on the plus side. Same thing with Abraham Lincoln. Does freeing the count for nothing? Apparently not now. Abraham Lincoln in America has the same treatment. At the point, even Gandhi, who you just mentioned, gets the same treatment. Nobody is good enough for these people who believe that history starts with them, and only they, in 2022, know what's right and wrong. These people, of course, are doing something very, very wicked, very quickly. They know that if they take out Churchill, they will take out Britishness at a very fundamental level. They take out Jefferson and Lincoln, they've taken out America.
Murray observes that UK museums are filled with self-condemnations.
And I discovered on returning this week that it's now become an oddity of our own time. The museum is filled with condemnations of the museum. The collection is filled with condemnations of the collection. Almost everything tells you about the sins of European colonialism, European racism. There are, of course, all of the nods to the religion of our time. There are segments on Beyond the Binary, because I'm sure that's what everybody wants when they go to the Pitt Rivers collection. And we see, for instance, anime characters from the 1990s who are strong queer icons. My point is that the museum is effectively abolishing itself. It's saying that the collection was put together by bad forces and it has to be saved in the modern era, reinterpreted and indeed accused. Now this, as I say in my cover piece this week, is not at all unusual. It is something that is going on at collection after collection and museum after museum across the land. And the oddity of this is not just that this is in fact encouraged by, for instance, the Museums Association, which tells collections in the UK how to, quote, decolonize, but of course that the collections themselves are doing it. We just saw last weekend the Welcome Collection on London's Euston Road announcing that it was closing its exhibition. Why? Because it had tried to decolonize, but it couldn't tear itself away from its white male origins. And so the Welcome Collection announced that it would be closing. It couldn't justify itself, so in the end, it stopped.
Criticism is acceptable, provided it's not a one-sided political attack.
What I think is strange is that they should hate the collections which they are in charge of. Again, I come back to the point, I followed, unlike Ed, extremely closely the activities at the Tate in recent years, and also observed extremely closely the way in which they decided to make Stanley Spencer, one of the other two great artists of the 20th century, in their collection, into a posthumous racist for no good reason at all. So yes, that's what I find strange. But to get back to your point, Kate, the interesting thing about this word retain and explain thing is it's absolutely fine and admirable so long as it isn't a one-directional political hit job. And let me give you an example of what a one-directional political hit job looks like. If you want to, for instance, say parts of this museum were put together in an era of colonialism in Europe or colonialism in Britain, fine. Who doesn't mind that? I don't mind that. I don't think anyone would mind that. But here's what I mind. Is when you, for instance, as at the Pitt Rivers, get that, and then a strange silence on everywhere else in the world. For instance, the Kingdom of Benin, which has already come up a couple of times. If you stand before the display on the Kingdom of Benin in the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford, do you learn anything about... Curiously enough, no. Do you learn that the Kingdom of Benin was practicing long after the British Empire decided to abolish it and sent its ships across the seas trying to stamp it out anywhere else? No. And you would leave believing that the rest of the planet lived in Eden until the wicked Europeans arrived. It's not education, it's self-flagellation.
Brexit was the result of a 25-year campaign against globalist elites.
Well, we had really a massive...
What do you think a Labour government will do to the UK?
Yeah, I mean, Keir Starmer has no leadership qualities whatsoever. He is devoid of any sort of charisma at all. And people do need a leader, that inspires them to a certain degree. He's kind of doing well because he's not the Conservatives, and there is revulsion. There is revulsion at them, a sense of betrayal about them. On the face of it, his manifesto on climate change is almost identical to the Conservatives. His manifesto on economics is almost identical to the Conservatives. But I think we know that what we'll see is trans ideology in the ascendancy. We'll see more legislation designed to divide us up into different groups rather than bring us together as human beings equal before the law. I look at his potential front bench of the top ministers. I see very little competence whatsoever. He's almost going to win by default, as opposed to, a big enthusiastic wave of support. And so in some ways, I think there's every opportunity for this just to be a one-term Labour government. There'll be no honeymoon. There'll be no sort of after-victory glow. He faces a big set of problems, the ones I mentioned earlier, the population explosion, the fact our public services don't work, the fact young people can't get a house and even their rents take up over half of their income. And he won't have the solutions to any of it. He's campaigning on a slogan of change, but actually it'll be more of the same, just ever so slightly worse. So here's the opportunity. The opportunity is to reshape the centre-right of British politics, to be where the silent majority actually are. Now, I know that the British Conservative Party have been around for 190 years, but nothing necessarily lasts forever. And what I'm doing with Reform UK is I am taking those stances on all of those issues that I think give us the kind of radical change that we need. And I use the word radical in an old-fashioned sense of the word. You see, I'm a traditionalist. I think that our culture matters.
The driver of Princess Diana, finally breaking his silence, shared chilling details live on TV that shook the world.
I had to turn away, think about it, and then grip myself back and get on with what I was doing.
Princess Diana's untimely and unusual injury, a mystery that has haunted us all, was revealed to be the cause of her tragic death.
She was talking and they were worried about other people, and it was only later that she had a very unusual injury.
I just felt that it was appearing every day in newspapers and various things, and I was listening to people, and that was an emotional day on the day that she...
Imagine the driver's shock, hearing of the princess's horrific accident while he was in the comfort of his bed.
You got the phone call, and
Yes, I can, vividly.
What was it like? Where were you? And
I was in bed with my wife, and she answered the phone. I had a bit of banter with the guy on the other end, and then she looked round at me and said, "I think you better get up and sit on the end of the bed and take this phone call."
His colleague relayed to him with a grave tone that the princess had sustained severe injuries as a result of an unfortunate accident.
And it was a colleague from Balmoral who was telling me that Her Royal Highness was actually injured. And put the television on and you'll see. So that's what I did. It was a bit of a shock. Got dressed and then went down to Kensington Palace.
Summoned to the palace after the accident, he recounted the surreal and heart-wrenching experience of being thrust into a tragedy.
Yes, it was quite difficult because Robin Cook, who was then the Foreign Secretary, was on the television giving what had happened. And he was explaining that she was injured. When in fact the private secretary, Michael, was telling the six of us in the office that sadly she'd...
When he landed in Paris, the atmosphere was thick with tension and sorrow, a city mourning the loss of a beloved icon.
Yes, the 24 hours was quite difficult. Getting to Paris was fine. Getting to the embassy was great, except I didn't speak French. My wife speaks it fluently, which a phone helped. And I knew one of the military attachés, Brigadier Ritchie, who immediately came into the room, and he used to work with Princess Anne.
The hospital was flooded with people desperate to know the princess's condition, a testament to her global impact.
So I was taken in to help, where I went to the hotel, and then I went to the hospital, and arrived at the hospital, lots of people about. On I think it was the first floor, and there was a lot of people.
The driver, maintaining his professionalism amid the chaos, felt the weight of the world's grief and disbelief.
Yes, I mean, I was an ex-inspector, but I did say that perhaps people are expecting lords, ladies and colonels in this in this particular instance. But we were dealt with by Sir Michael J. very, very well, and given everything that I needed, I was given.
He described the emotional torment of seeing Princess Diana in a hospital bed, a stark contrast to her usual radiant presence.
It's very difficult and emotional to see a person lying in a bed and not in a mortuary. And when I was in the room, which was very, very hot, I looked out of the window and I could see people on a roof. Now, whether they knew where the princess was, I don't know, but that worried me. So I got some blankets because there was no curtains, and we put blankets along the windows, which made it even hotter in the room. And I then went and got some fans to try and cool the room down. And that one moment in my life, which perhaps my professionalism was lacking a little bit, because as I turned round, the eyelashes and the hair of the princess were moving, caused by the fan. And that just struck me. I had to turn away, think about it, and then grip myself back and get on with what I was doing.
You didn't believe she would?
For a long time. I just refused to accept that she was gone. Part of, she would never do this to us, but also part of, maybe this is all part of a plan.
I mean, you really believed that maybe she had just decided to disappear for a time?
For a time, and then that she would call us and we would go and join her. Yeah.
How long did you believe that?
Years. Many, many years. And William and I talked about it as well. Mainly proof that she was in the car, proof that she was injured, and proof that the very paparazzi that chased her into the tunnel were the ones that were taking photographs of her lying half on the backseat of the car.
You write, I hadn't been aware before this moment, talking about looking at the pictures of the crash scene, that the last thing Mummy saw on this earth was a flashbulb. That's what you saw in the pictures.
The pictures showed the reflection of a group of photographers taking photographs through the window, and the reflection of the window was them.
Conspiracy theories swirled around the accident, each more sinister than the last, demanding thorough investigation.
I wasn't involved in the first examination, and of course she was then buried, so we didn't exhume her and have another look, but it was a review of all of the circumstances. There were so many conspiracy theories that needed to be looked at and properly examined. They were sort of glossed over a bit to begin with. So we went back and we did that. And so I looked obviously at the pathology, not just of Diana, but also of Henri Paul, who was the driver, and Dodie, who was her lover, and a guy called Trevor Rees-Jones, who was a security guard. So 4 people in that Mercedes. Now, if you have a crash at about 60 miles an hour in a Mercedes, you should walk away. And the thing I learned was that you put your seatbelt on, because Diana didn't have a seatbelt on, Dodie didn't have a seatbelt on, Henri Paul, the driver, didn't have a seatbelt on. Trevor Rees-Jones realised something was going wrong and just got his seatbelt on in time, because he lived to tell the tale. And when the car hit the bridge pillar, interestingly, the 13th pillar on the bridge, I mean, it adds to the conspiracy, doesn't it? It's got to be the 13th pillar. How the SAS managed to get them to hit the 13th pillar, I don't know. But, when they hit the pillar, Dodie hit the back of Henri Paul with a weight of about 3 elephants. And then Henri Paul hit the steering wheel. They were instantly. Diana wasn't badly injured. She'd broken an arm and had a couple of other little injuries. But I mean, she should have survived, and she was partly protected by Rees-Jones, because she hit the back of his seat and was saved a bit. And in fact, when they arrived, they thought she was okay. She was talking, and they were worried about other people. And it was only later that she had a very unusual injury deep in the center of her chest that no one knew was there. And when she became ill and collapsed, at that point, it became too late. And she after surgery.
Despite her royal status, the driver fondly remembered Princess Diana's tremendous sense of humor, a light in the darkness.
There is a line. You don't cross that line. You speak to when you're spoken to. And it is still very correct. She was still very royal. And yes, we were often together in the car, and it would be light conversation. She had a tremendous sense of humor. And wherever we went, I never had a crossword in the 2 years. Not one crossword. I think they went in too fast, but in the inquest, that was sorted out. I've driven through the tunnel myself. There are stanchions in the tunnel, which if you can be taken a little bit by, if you have 2 trains in a station, one moves out, you think you're moving. You go into fast where there's stanchions, it's getting a little bit worrying. So whatever happened, I perhaps a little bit too fast and being taken away with the lady in the back.
And what are your memories of Princess Diana now? Because, of course, that was such an emotional time and 20 years ago, but when you think back and think of her legacy?
A great boss. I felt the last year from August the 28th when the divorce came through, that year up to she felt to me, because I didn't work with her years ago as a police officer, I was with Princess Anne, but she was good. She seemed to be living a good life and happy.
I was in bed in the embassy and the phone calls, 2 phone calls came early on and told me that there had been an accident and clearly I needed to get to the hospital quickly. When we arrived, we were met by the French Interior Minister, Jean-Pierre Chevènement, and he said he had heard that there'd been the accident, she had been badly hurt, but didn't know how badly she'd been hurt. And then Chevènement was taken out by one of the nurses, and he came back in tears, really, and came up to me and said, "I'm afraid she's." But then after we had heard that she had, then I was on the phone, clearly to Robin Janvin in Balmoral to tell him so he could tell the royal family that she had, and also to Downing Street. It was just getting light. 2 Mercedes drew up and I told him that the Princess of Wales was, he knew that his son had died, and we offered our condolences.
Prince Harry, grappling with his own grief, was shielded from viewing the more gruesome photographs of his mother's final moments.
All I saw was the back of my mum's head, slumped on the back seat. There were other more gruesome photographs, but I will be eternally grateful to him for denying me the ability to inflict pain on myself by saying that, because that's the kind of stuff that sticks in your mind forever.
There was a tremendous shock in the hospital at that stage. And certainly when I was told, and we were told that she had, we were aware that this was a profoundly moving moment for all those who had been involved. My wife and I went to Villacoublay, the official airport, to meet the Prince of Wales. He said how Prince William had wanted to go to church that morning, which was not, he said, something Prince William always wanted to do on a Sunday morning. So they had been to church, but throughout that day, that morning, he had wanted to do what he thought was in the best interests of 2 children who had lost their mother rather brutally. The feeling I had from the conversation I had with the Prince of Wales and conversation I had later on with the Queen was the concern of a family who had lost a member of that family, and a family, in particular the Prince of Wales, who knew that his children had lost their mother. Curious of the nation wanted to share their grief, it seems to me, with someone, and the person they wanted to share their grief with was the Queen. And when the Queen came to London, I think that was, in a sense, a cathartic moment for the royal family, and was a sense that the royal family and the Queen was responding to the grief which the nation felt.
She was the villain. She was the 3rd person in the marriage. She needed.
Let's take a look at the intriguing and controversial life of King Charles, a prominent figure in the British royal family, as Kayleigh McEnany unveils a comprehensive exposé on his secrets, scandals, and untold stories. This revealing narrative also sheds light on the journey of his current queen consort, Camilla Parker Bowles. From the early days of Camilla's romance with Prince Charles, through years of public scrutiny and scandal, to her eventual acceptance into the royal fold, we explore every detail of their complex relationship. Discover how a single phone call almost brought down the British monarchy, and how a secret love affair existed long before Princess Diana came into the picture. Get ready to delve into the hidden truths behind the headlines, as we examine how Camilla transformed from one of the most reviled women in Britain to queen consort. This story spans decades and includes some of the most shocking moments in royal history, as revealed by Kayleigh McEnany. Starting from the beginning, we follow the current Queen Consort, Camilla Parker Bowles, and King Charles as they navigate their new roles amidst ongoing public scrutiny. Their relationship has been anything but smooth, marked by scandal and controversy, notably during Charles's marriage to Princess Diana. However, the revelations didn't stop there. Uncover the secret Queen Camilla revealed about King Charles, and explore the royal love story that intertwines Charles, Camilla, and Diana, adding layers of intrigue to this narrative that mirrors a fairy tale with its unexpected twists and turns. On a breezy afternoon in 1970, during a polo match at Windsor Great Park, Charles encountered Camilla. She broke the ice by mentioning that her great-grandmother had been the mistress of Charles's great-great-grandfather, highlighting their shared history. It's quite an introduction. Historians suggest they may have been introduced by a mutual friend, Lucia Santa Cruz, but regardless of how it happened, sparks flew and they began dating. Their bond was genuine, marked by real happiness and togetherness. However, their romance was interrupted when Charles was sent to serve in the Royal Navy. During their time apart, Camilla made a pivotal decision and married Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973, a man who had once dated Charles's sister, Princess Anne. Despite her marriage, Camilla and Charles maintained their connection, with Charles even becoming the godfather to Camilla's son Tom. Rumor has it that Charles made a last-minute attempt to stop Camilla's wedding. Imagine the heartache of watching someone you love marry another. Before Diana entered the scene, Charles had a brief romance with her sister, Sarah Spencer, in 1977. This relationship ended when Sarah overshared with the press, but she played a crucial role in introducing Charles to her younger sister, Diana, at Althorpe House during a pheasant hunt. This introduction set the stage for Charles and Diana's relationship. Charles's relationship with Diana was heavily influenced by royal expectations. By the late 1970s, he was under pressure to find a suitable wife, and Diana, young and seemingly perfect for the role of a princess, fit the bill. Despite this, Charles's heart always seemed to be drawn to Camilla. Their early days were filled with joy, a stark contrast to the challenges that lay ahead for Charles. The impact of Charles's first love with Camilla was profound, enduring through the years. Camilla would later reveal the full truth about Charles. But before we get to that revelation, let's delve deeper into Charles and Diana's story, from teenage crush to royal partnership. Their early days were filled with charming but awkward moments. In November 1977, Diana, a 16-year-old schoolgirl, met 28-year-old Charles, a prominent royal figure, at Althorpe. Thanks to her sister Sarah, who had once dated Charles, the dinner was buzzing with excitement when the prince arrived. Diana made a lasting impression with her lively personality, catching Charles's attention. He even asked her for a dance after dinner, marking their first formal meeting. In 1978, Diana found herself amid the grandeur of Buckingham Palace, attending Charles's 30th birthday celebration. This event, filled with royalty and elite figures, was a world Diana, still a teenager, had to navigate. Their next notable meeting occurred 2 years later, in 1980, at a friend's house party. During this time, Charles was deeply affected by the tragic loss of Lord Mountbatten. Diana's empathy and kind words touched Charles profoundly. She noticed his sadness and told him he shouldn't be lonely and deserved someone to care for him. This genuine moment of compassion brought them closer, revealing a side of Diana that Charles hadn't fully seen before. Diana's popularity with the public soared, endearing her to the British people with her genuine warmth and relatability. This increasing public admiration added strain to her already challenging marriage with Charles. The constant media spotlight created a fishbowl existence for Diana, where every move was scrutinized and every gesture analyzed. Despite the glamour and prestige of her position, Diana's life was far from a fairy tale, filled with personal struggles and a relentless quest for privacy and normalcy for herself and her children. Her journey was marked by immense personal growth and resilience, even as she sought to find her own identity within the strict confines of royal expectations. Later that year, Diana received an invitation to the royal family's Balmoral estate. This visit was significant, almost like an audition for royal approval. Diana fit in effortlessly, charming everyone with her natural ease, and even learning to fish with Charles. The paparazzi quickly caught on to their growing relationship, and Diana became a media sensation. They were particularly captivated by a photo of her at her kindergarten job, which inadvertently revealed more than intended due to the sunlight behind her skirt. Charles's comment about Diana's legs being spectacular indicated a shift in their relationship to something more personal and less formal. By January 1981, with the media frenzy at its peak, Prince Philip decided it was time for Charles to make a decision. He sent a letter to Charles, urging him to either propose to Diana or end their relationship to protect her reputation. Charles took this as a royal mandate, leading to a proposal and what would become the wedding of the century. On February 6, 1981, Charles proposed to Diana, and she accepted. This royal engagement was a major event, filled with immense pressure and expectations. A few weeks after the proposal, the couple gave a televised interview. It was charming until a seemingly simple question cast a shadow over their happy news. When asked if they were in love, Diana immediately said yes, but Charles's ambiguous response about what being in love meant raised some eyebrows. At the time, this was perhaps seen as typical royal reserve. On July 29, 1981, the highly anticipated royal wedding took place at St. Paul's Cathedral in London, drawing an estimated 750 million viewers worldwide. Diana, stunning in an ivory silk gown with a 25-foot train, the longest ever worn by a British royal bride, exuded elegance despite her visible nerves, which led her to mistakenly call Charles by the wrong name during their vows. The wedding's splendor was undeniable, yet hints of underlying challenges and pressures were present from the beginning. Remarkably, Diana and Charles had only met 13 times before his proposal. Imagine committing to marriage after so few encounters. Their honeymoon, expected to be filled with romance and joy, turned out to be far from idyllic. Instead of basking in newlywed bliss, the couple spent time reading books by Charles's favorite author, Lawrence van der Post. Diana later revealed in taped interviews for a biography that her hopes had already faded by the second day of the honeymoon. She felt exhausted and emotionally drained, not from happiness, but from the immense pressure of adapting to her new royal role. In retrospect, both the engagement and wedding were grand yet bittersweet events, marked by celebration and underlying struggles, with millions witnessing only the surface glitter, unaware of the deeper challenges. Despite their history, Camilla attended the royal wedding, likely due to her husband, Andrew Parker Bowles's position as the commanding officer of the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment. At this time, both Charles and Camilla were married to others, and it seemed their romantic involvement had ended. However, soon enough, royal secrets would begin to unravel, revealing that the fairy tale was more complex than it appeared. Diana's turbulent royal life. From the moment Diana stepped into the royal spotlight, her life seemed like a fairy tale. However, beneath the grandeur and sparkling tiaras lay a world of struggle, heartache, and private battles. Let's delve into the challenges Princess Diana faced during her marriage to Prince Charles, including mental health issues, public scandals, and a marriage fraught with turmoil. At just 19 years old, Diana transitioned abruptly from a simple life in a London flat shared with friends to the isolated opulence of Buckingham Palace. The lively girl who charmed everyone at Balmoral soon became distressed and jealous, her moods swinging wildly under the intense pressures of her new royal duties, according to her biographer, Penny Junor. The constant scrutiny and high expectations overwhelmed her, marking the beginning of a turbulent royal journey. The spotlight only magnified Diana's private struggles. She battled bulimia, a disorder often reflecting deeper emotional turmoil. Penny Junor notes that this wasn't just about food. It was a manifestation of Diana's ongoing mental health issues, rooted in a traumatic childhood marred by her parents' unhappy marriage. Diana later described bulimia as a secret disease, a desperate attempt to find comfort, followed by intense disgust and further emotional pain. One of the most heartbreaking moments in Diana's story occurred on the eve of her wedding. Her astrologer revealed that Charles confessed he didn't love her just before their wedding, a time that should have been filled with hope and joy, not despair. This devastating confession set a tone of heartache from the start. The strains in their relationship were exacerbated by lingering connections to past relationships. Just before their wedding, Diana found a bracelet Charles had intended for Camilla Parker Bowles, inscribed with the initials G and F, nicknames for each other. This discovery, amid intense public scrutiny, deepened Diana's insecurities and doubts. Diana's candid revelations about her struggles came to light in her 1995 interview with Martin Bashir, where she openly discussed her bulimia and feelings of inadequacy. This interview, though controversial in how it was obtained, offered a glimpse into the profound isolation and distress Diana experienced, highlighting her bravery in confronting such personal demons publicly. Behind the smiles and royal duties was a woman who battled severe personal challenges, fought for her sense of self, and faced a marriage that began with a heartbreakingly honest admission. Despite the facade of a fairy tale, Diana's royal life was marked by profound personal growth and resilience in the face of immense pressure. Charles, Camilla, and Diana. The hidden turmoil behind the royal facade. The discovery of a bracelet intended for Camilla Parker Bowles set off a chain of events that would eventually lead to the divorce of Prince Charles and Princess Diana. Although Camilla attended the royal wedding, many believed she and Charles had not been in contact for 5 years. The reality, however, was quite different, and the truth was about to unravel in a most dramatic fashion. Before the chaos, Charles and Diana's marriage appeared to be a fairy tale. However, behind the palace doors, it was a different story. Charles had a history with Camilla Parker Bowles, a vibrant woman he met through a friend in the 1970s. They clicked instantly, but the expectations of royal life pushed Charles to seek a wife who fit the mold of a future queen. Lady Diana Spencer was young and noble, but perhaps not entirely prepared for the challenges ahead. In 1981, she and Charles exchanged vows in a grand royal wedding. The twist. Camilla was present among the multitude of guests, and not just as an observer. Unbeknownst to the radiant bride, the stage for a royal scandal had already been set. As the initial enchantment of the marriage wore off, the harsh reality of their loveless union hit Diana hard. She felt isolated and unloved, while Charles seemed distant, his affections elsewhere. It wasn't long before Diana's suspicions about Charles's fidelity grew, leading to a shocking discovery. A bracelet intended as a gift from Charles to Camilla, hidden away, but not well enough. The bracelet, a secret token meant for Camilla just before Charles's wedding to Diana, surfaced at the worst possible time. Diana confronted Charles, but received nothing more than excuses and dismissals. However, small clues, a phone call here, a bouquet of flowers there, indicated this was no ordinary friendship. The royal marriage was deteriorating, and the public was beginning to take notice. By 1989, the situation had reached a breaking point. Charles and Camilla had rekindled their old romance, and Diana was fully aware. She decided she had had enough. At a birthday party attended by both Camilla and Diana, the stage was set for a royal confrontation. Summoning all her courage, Diana approached Camilla for a chat. The air was thick with tension as Diana laid it all out, making it clear she knew what was going on between her and Charles. Camilla, though caught off guard, maintained her composure and responded in a way that must have felt like a slap, telling Diana she had everything she could want: men falling in love with her, and 2 beautiful children. Diana, burdened by her broken heart, simply expressed her desire for her husband. The confrontation didn't magically solve anything. Diana knew she was fighting a losing battle. With dignity, she ended the conversation, leaving a stinging reminder to Camilla that despite their mutual difficulties, she was fully aware of the affair and refused to be treated like a fool. This event marked the beginning of the end for Charles and Diana's marriage. Their relationship, which had started with such public fanfare, was now crumbling under the weight of deceit and betrayal. As the royal secrets spilled into the public domain, the fairy tale facade disintegrated, revealing the complex and painful reality behind the palace walls. Royal breakups and conspiracies, The late 80s marked the beginning of the end for the fairy tale marriage of Prince Charles and Princess Diana. By 1986, their lives had drifted apart, with Charles seeking comfort in the familiar company of Camilla Parker Bowles, rekindling a relationship that had never truly extinguished. In December 1992, the British Prime Minister made a televised announcement declaring the official separation of Charles and Diana. The situation took a dramatic turn in the summer of 1994, when Charles, during a revealing interview with Jonathan Dimbleby, openly admitted to his affair. His cold demeanor towards Diana and their sons caused a public outcry and led Camilla's husband, Andrew Parker Bowles, to seek a divorce. The fallout was swift and relentless. Diana had her moment to speak in November 1995 with her now famous Panorama interview, candidly stating, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." This was a breaking point for the Queen, who soon after urged Charles and Diana to divorce. By August 1996, their marriage was officially dissolved. The story took a tragic turn just a year later when Diana died in a car crash in Paris in 1997, at only 36 years old. As paparazzi chased their car, it crashed in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, resulting in the deaths of Diana, her companion, Dodi Fayed, and the driver, Henry Paul. Her bodyguard survived but was severely injured. The tragic incident sparked numerous conspiracy theories. Some speculated that the crash was not a mere accident, but a calculated move, possibly involving the royal family to clear the path for Charles to marry Camilla. Although Charles initially claimed he had no plans to remarry, the reality turned out differently. In the late 80s, the public facade of Prince Charles and Princess Diana's marriage began to show significant cracks. By 1986, they were living almost entirely separate lives. Charles revived his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, an old flame whose bond with him had never completely faded. The public announcement of their separation came in December 1992, delivered by the British Prime Minister on national television. A crucial moment occurred in the summer of 1994, when Charles, in an interview with Jonathan Dimbleby, admitted to his affair with Camilla. His apparent lack of affection towards Diana and their sons caused a stir, prompting Camilla's husband, Andrew Parker Bowles, to file for divorce. The chain reaction was swift and dramatic. Diana's candid Panorama interview in November 1995, where she famously remarked, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded," prompted the Queen to advise Charles and Diana to divorce. By August 1996, their marriage was officially over. Tragically, just a year later, Diana died in a car crash in Paris in 1997 at the age of 36. Pursued by paparazzi, the car crashed in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, claiming the lives of Diana, her companion Dodi Fayed, and the driver Henry Paul. Her bodyguard survived but was critically injured. The circumstances of Diana's death quickly became enveloped in conspiracy theories. Speculations arose that the crash was not simply an accident, with some suggesting that the royal family might have been involved to facilitate Charles's marriage to Camilla. Despite Charles's initial assertions of having no plans to remarry, the future would reveal a different reality, adding another layer of complexity to this already intricate royal saga. The story of Charles and Camilla old love, they say, never truly dies. It simply waits for the right moment to flourish once more. This was certainly the case for Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, whose romance reignited under difficult circumstances following Princess Diana's tragic death in 1997. Navigating the intense media scrutiny and public heartbreak over Diana, Charles and Camilla faced a challenging journey toward acceptance. In 1998, Prince William, still in his teens, met Camilla during a visit to his father at St. James's Palace. The encounter was understandably tense, marking the beginning of Camilla's gradual introduction into William and Harry's lives. Their early meetings over lunches and teas were awkward but necessary steps toward building a relationship. Initially, Queen Elizabeth II showed no support for Camilla, even referring to her as that wicked woman. It wasn't until 2000 that the Queen began to soften, joining Charles and Camilla for a lunch that quietly indicated her acceptance. Things started looking up when Charles and Camilla made their first public appearance together in January 1999 at a birthday party for Camilla's sister. Arriving separately to maintain a low profile, they left together, causing a media frenzy and slowly easing Camilla into the public eye. By the time of the Queen Mother's funeral in 2002, Camilla stood by Charles, presenting herself as his partner. That same year, she undertook her first solo public engagement, a significant step in her public life. In 2003, the couple moved in together at Clarence House, making their relationship official without the bond of marriage. Everything changed on February 10, 2005, when Charles and Camilla announced their engagement, a moment that captured headlines and public interest. Camilla humorously shared that Charles had indeed gotten down on one knee to propose. The engagement was warmly welcomed by the royal family, with William and Harry expressing their happiness for the couple. The wedding, held on April 9, 2005 at Windsor Guildhall, was a modest affair. They chose a simple ceremony with close family and friends, foregoing the typical grandeur of a royal wedding. The Queen did not attend the ceremony, but joined the couple for the blessing at St. George's Chapel afterward. In the wake of Diana's death in 1997, Charles and Camilla found their romance rekindled amidst public mourning and media scrutiny. This period was fraught with challenges as they sought acceptance. In 1998, a teenage Prince William had an uncomfortable meeting with Camilla at St. James's Palace, a crucial step in her gradual introduction to the royal family. Initial interactions over lunches and teas were awkward but necessary. Queen Elizabeth II was initially resistant to Camilla, dubbing her "that wicked woman." However, by 2000, her stance softened, and she dined with Charles and Camilla, subtly signaling her approval. Public appearances followed, with a significant one in January 1999 at a birthday party for Camilla's sister. Arriving separately but leaving together, Charles and Camilla's public outing created a media storm, paving the way for Camilla's acceptance. By the Queen Mother's funeral in 2002, Camilla stood by Charles, solidifying her role as his partner. She also embarked on her first solo public engagement that year, a critical move in her royal journey. By 2003, Charles and Camilla had moved in together at Clarence House, signifying their serious commitment. On February 10, 2005, Charles and Camilla announced their engagement, a moment of public and media excitement. Camilla shared that Charles had indeed proposed on one knee. The engagement was warmly received by the family, with William and Harry expressing their support. The wedding on April 9, 2005, at Windsor Guildhall was understated and intimate, attended by close family and friends. The Queen skipped the ceremony but attended the subsequent blessing at St. George's Chapel, showing her support. The journey of Charles and Camilla, marked by rekindled love, public scrutiny, and gradual acceptance, culminated in a modest yet meaningful wedding, symbolizing a new beginning for the couple. From scandal to crown, when Queen Elizabeth II passed away, the dynamics of the British monarchy underwent a significant transformation. Charles ascended the throne as King Charles III, and in a surprising twist, Camilla was named Queen Consort. This development was unexpected, especially considering Queen Elizabeth's initial reluctance to accept Camilla. Over the years, however, Camilla proved her loyalty and dedication, eventually earning the Queen's endorsement in a heartfelt message. This endorsement, which seemed unthinkable decades ago, marked a dramatic shift in the royal narrative, turning Camilla from a figure of skepticism into a respected pillar of the monarchy. The late Queen's public blessing underscored Camilla's journey and emphasized her commitment to the crown, encouraging others to support Charles and Camilla as they had supported her. The question of why Charles married Diana when his heart belonged to Camilla lingered in the minds of many. This dilemma highlighted the conflict between royal duties and personal happiness. Diana, trapped in a loveless marriage, suffered immensely, enduring years of emotional distress. Charles's marriage to Diana, despite his enduring love for Camilla, underscored the immense pressure and expectations placed on royal family members to prioritize duty over personal desire, often leading to profound personal sacrifices. The Tampon Gate scandal. One of the most notorious scandals in royal history erupted when details of a private phone conversation between Charles and Camilla from 1989 were leaked. Dubbed Tampon Gate, or Camilla Gate, this scandal was not just typical tabloid fare. It was a royal catastrophe. At the time of the call, both Charles and Camilla were married to other people. The conversation, however, was anything but ordinary, with Charles expressing a desire to be reincarnated as Camilla's tampon, a bizarrely intimate statement that somehow became public. This scandalous exchange made headlines under the sensational title, Charles and Camilla, the Tape. The People newspaper published a full transcript of their 6-minute conversation, and to add to the humiliation, audio of the conversation was also released. The release of such a private and intimate conversation raised questions about who might be responsible for the leak. And this incident remains one of the most memorable royal embarrassments, illustrating the intense scrutiny and public interest in the personal lives of the royal family. Do you think Camilla is to blame? What are your thoughts on these events? Let us know in the comments below, and as always, we'll see you in the next video.